LeBron James appeared to injure his left shoulder late in today's first-round playoff game just before a pretty heated moment broke out on the court. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and this is your #1 source for learning about the unique medical side of the world of sports. Let's get right to the play where this happened here. You guys know what to do if you want to support the channel here. So LeBron had just shot a free throw, and as he's going up for a rebound, gets his left arm tangled up with Chris Paul, and then, maybe Paul pulled it a little bit. But basically what happened was his left arm got kind of put into this traction with a little bit of pull backwards here as he was going up for this rebound. Now, I know you guys were going to say he was faking it, but definitely given this mechanism and how he responded, it's plausible that he really did injure the shoulder. We can see where he's grabbing here on his left arm is just kind of at where the deltoid muscle inserts up on the humerus or the upper arm bone. One more view to look at here, of course, LeBron trying to bring that left arm up, trying to abduct that arm over his head, but it gets caught by Chris Paul here, and then pretty much right there as he releases, we can already see LeBron's in some pain, grabbing that shoulder as he goes down. The differential when I see a mechanism like this is going to be a possible shoulder subluxation with potential injury to the labrum of the shoulder, the potential for a rotator cuff injury, and then also just some injury to the ligaments or the other connective tissues around the shoulder joint, like a sprain. To think of what can happen here, we have to understand the biomechanics of what's being done to his left arm. So as he's going up, LeBron is trying to raise that left arm up over his head. He's trying to abduct that arm. What's also happening is there's some traction, meaning the arm is being pulled a little bit out this way because of that action with Chris Paul's arm kind of coming over to the side. And then also it looks like his arm gets brought backwards behind him a little bit. If we look at our biodigital anatomy tool here, the first muscle we're gonna see on the outside of the shoulder is going to be the deltoid muscle. That's the big one that gives you kind of that contour of the shoulder and is primarily responsible for abducting or raising the arm up overhead. And you'll see how it inserts right down around that area where LeBron was first grabbing. Deltoid strains are very, very rare. If anything, we might see a contusion just from direct impact to the deltoid muscle. So I'm not as worried about the deltoid muscle. If we hide the deltoid muscle, then underneath that, we're going to see our other soft tissues and muscles of the rotator cuff. The rotator cuff is the group of muscles that helps keep the head of the shoulder, the humerus, in place within the socket. It helps to stabilize and control more fine movements of the whole shoulder. There's 4 rotator cuff muscles, and we remember them with the acronym SITS. The subscapularis in the front, in the back, the infraspinatus and the teres minor, and then on the very top, the supraspinatus. The supraspinatus is key here because that's the muscle that's going to contribute to abducting or raising your arm up, particularly in that first kind of initial sequence. Then, of course, we're going to have the various ligaments around the shoulder joint. So the ligaments that connect the clavicle to the acromion, and these are going to be what's injured when you have a shoulder separation. If we get rid of those, you can then see that joint underlying. And if we start to pull away some of our rotator cuff muscles, we're going to see first the capsule around the shoulder joint. This capsule surrounds the entire shoulder joint to sort of define that joint space. And then we're also going to have a number of smaller ligaments that run between the humerus and the scapula. These are things we typically don't hear of as specific named injuries, but whenever we have any sort of pull, traction injury like this, you can get injuries to these smaller ligaments. Now, if we remove all of those outer smaller ligaments, then we're going to really get down to our labrum. And your labrum, of course, is this rim of connective tissue, sort of like cartilage, that lines the outer portion of that socket of the shoulder joint to help provide some additional stability and support to the shoulder joint itself. If the shoulder gets pulled one way or the other, it can sometimes shear a little piece of this labrum, causing a labral injury. Last year with Bam Adebayo, when we saw his arm get stretched really far backwards as he was going up for that block, that's that classic position that can injure this labrum and cause a shoulder subluxation, where the shoulder partially wants to come out of place. LeBron's response here, where he just kind of has that left arm hanging down a little bit, is classic for when somebody has a shoulder injury. You don't want to fire and contract those muscles, and so you just sort of let the shoulder go limp. So I know people are going to say he was faking this and milking it, but I really don't think it was. He really did react pretty classically like somebody who had a shoulder injury. Even when we saw him kind of trying to move and rotate the shoulder around, that's the kind of thing that reminds me of a possible labrum or shoulder joint type of pattern. When we talk about a possible rotator cuff strain, oftentimes it's from something like a trauma or a fall where you land and suddenly forcibly contract the rotator cuff muscles. But also here, as LeBron is trying to bring that left arm up, it's being resisted. It can't bring it up. And so that act of the rotator cuff muscles, specifically that supraspinatus over the top, trying to fire against that resistance of Chris Paul kind of catching the arm, can potentially cause a rotator cuff strain. And the interesting thing about rotator cuff injuries is people classically have pain down at that spot on the arm, near the insertion of the deltoid right where LeBron was grabbing. We can already get a decent sense that nothing is going to be completely torn within the shoulder, because if it were, LeBron wouldn't be able to do the basic movements and range of motion of that left arm that he would need. And because it's his non-dominant side, I really wouldn't expect whatever's going on here in the shoulder to cause that much of an issue in the playoffs. Certainly a rotator cuff strain or a ligament injury can take a little bit of time to heal, but because it's his non-dominant shoulder, he's not going to be putting it through as much demand, and so I wouldn't expect it to limit him that much. Even if this were something like a little bit of a labral injury or a shoulder subluxation, we have different things with injections that can be done more short-term to help manage pain to get somebody through a situation like this in the playoffs. So yes, I think it's possible this was a real injury, and I don't think he was milking this or faking it in any way. When I look at the mechanism and think through the differential, I'm thinking about a shoulder subluxation with possible labrum injury, rotator cuff strain or injury, or any other injury to those other multiple ligaments or capsule even of the shoulder joint. That's it for the video, everybody. Thank you as always for watching here. Let me know any questions or comments down below. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.